So it's 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday, and I think this is a perfect time for me to be making this video because the subject of this video is my top 15 tips as to how to make your working week less stressful and maybe even enjoyable. Gary Vee once said that if you're looking so much forward to every Friday afternoon and you're dreading Sundays and your shit is broken, and that is so true because we spend a lot of our lives having to work. In fact, we spend probably 50% or more of our waking hours having to go to work. So we have to find ways of making it not suck. We have to find ways of actually enjoying ourselves so that we don't feel like we've wasted half our lives. And here's where my 15 tips come in. So without any further ado, let's get on with it. Let's start off with tip number one. So my tip number one, as I sit here and have a little chat with you guys, is that it's so important that we don't spend Sunday evening feeling mopey and just dreading what happens the next morning. Because for most of us who work Monday to Friday, Sunday evening heralds the end of our weekend and the start of a potentially busy and stressful working week. So a lot of us sit here and dread and wish that it wasn't Sunday evening. But instead of doing that, how about we flip things around? How about instead of that, how about we treat ourselves on Sunday evening? What about if we prepare a nice meal for ourselves? I know that we may not be able to go out. We may have to set an alarm. We may have to go to sleep early and get up early. But there's nothing that should stop us from actually enjoying the Sunday evening. Even if it's just a meal at home, why not just cook up something nice or get some takeout and enjoy a nice movie, glass of wine or a nice ice cream at the end of the meal so that we end the weekend on a positive note instead of with dread. Typical emergency services on a Sunday evening. But let's get on with tip number two, and that is arrive early. Now, a lot of people think, why would we want to arrive early? It's a place that I don't want to go. Why do I want to get there before the start of my allocated shift time or work start time? The reason for that is we have this thing where you have to be at work at a certain hour and it's frowned upon if you're late. Whether it's shift, it doesn't even matter if it's shift work or just your regular hours. Your boss does not like you turning up late. So instead of being stressed, being stuck in unpredictable traffic, maybe the train's late, maybe the bus is late, maybe you can't find a parking spot, anything can happen. Why don't we give ourselves a little bit of a leeway? So we're not stressing out the entire time, going to work thinking, I'm going to be late, oh shit, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. And actually getting your hackles up and actually getting stressed before you even arrive at work. So as soon as you get to work, when you get hammered with 100 jobs, you've not already started on the back foot because you're not in a panic, you're not in a sweat as you arrive. Leave 15 minutes early. If you get there super early, for example, for me sometimes, because traffic is unpredictable, I sometimes get to work half an hour early. But what I do is, if I end up getting there so early, I sit in the car and read a book. I sit in the car, listen to music. I do something so that I give myself plenty of time so I can casually walk up to work before the start of my shift. But I'm not panicking because there's an accident on Harbour Bridge or something and I'm stuck and I'm running late and I'm going to have to call work saying I'm running late and I'm getting all stressed. You don't need to do that. Giving yourself that leeway gives you that opportunity to anticipate some of these potential delays and you get into work and you're nice and chill. Tip number three, most of us have some sort of a job description and a lot of us get confused about what our job description is. And we get ourselves into a funk in a position where we end up doing stuff that's not really part of our job. We think it is because it may be that we've worked in this place for so long that we've got used to doing that stuff, but realistically, it's not part of our job. And if the stuff that you're doing, which is above and beyond the call of your job, and it's not something you want to do, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do it because you just feel like you want to, or that you're doing it for another reason, to help somebody out or to try and get yourself a promotion. But if you're just doing it because it just become part of your life, because that's all you've been doing, that puts you in a really difficult position, because even though it's not part of your job, you've been doing it for so long that it kind of becomes part of your job and people expect that of you. And when you start saying, no, it's actually not part of my job, I'm going to stop doing it, that's where the resistance comes in. So at the get, if you feel like you don't want to do that because you're perfectly within your right, like I'm not saying that you should do a bad job, I'm just saying that you have a certain job description and that's a commitment that you've agreed to fulfill when you're employed at that particular company. You don't need to necessarily get your nose involved in other stuff that's not part of your job description unless there's a good reason to do so. And in that way, it will also help reduce your stress levels. Tip number four, You need to take breaks. I'm talking both long-term and short-term. From day to day, you need to be allowed. No boss is going to deprive you of the opportunity to have a lunch break or have a toilet break, stuff like that. You need to be able to fuel yourself. You need to be able to take a little bit of a break. You need to be able to go to the bathroom so you can perform at your optimal level. Working 12 hours straight without a single break, without anything to eat, you're not going to be performing that well. You're going to spend the last 4 or 5 hours just going through the motions because you're tired, you're hungry, exhausted, and nobody wants that. And it's not going to help you with your job longevity. So take your break. You're entitled to a meal break, especially if you're in a contract situation where you get an unpaid meal break. Go take it. Leave the office, leave the building, go for a walk up the street. It doesn't matter, but give yourself a break because it's part of your work condition. And secondly, in terms of longer breaks, I know lots of people who don't take annual leave, they don't take any vacations, they just work. And at some point they resent it, they get tired, they get burnt out, they start making mistakes and start hating their job. So every employee is entitled to their work breaks. Every employee is entitled to annual leave, and once in a while you should take some. Whether you want to spend the whole of it at the Christmas holidays so you can go on a vacation with your family, that's okay, but ideally take a little bit of break halfway through the year, recharge yourself, give yourself a week to do something else, and then you'll be setting yourself up for a better second half of the year. But it's up to you, but you should always take a break. Tip number 5, sick days. So a lot of us feel guilty for taking sick days because we feel like we're letting the company down, we feel like we're letting the team down, we feel like that we're causing our colleagues to have to do more work to cover for us. But if we're sick, we're sick. We're entitled to sick leave, and you know what? If you continue to work when you're sick, nothing good will come of it. One is you might get sicker and you may end up being off longer. 2 is if you go to work sick and you infect everyone else at work, no one's going to thank you for it. So if you're sick, take the entitled sick leave, stay home, recover, get better, and then go back to work when you're feeling well. Whether you work for a small company or a large company, there are always office politics involved. And here's tip number 6. It is your choice whether you get involved in all the politics. It is your choice whether you get involved with people bitching and moaning about each other, talking behind each other's back, all that kind of stuff that is really not conducive to a healthy workplace environment. You can make the decision to stay out of that stuff. You can make the decision to stay positive and only talk good things and say good things about people. You don't have to be the one who walks around complaining about all your other colleagues and complaining about how crap everything is and who should have done this and why this person should have done that. Just do your job. That's all that's expected of you, and I think that will also help you reduce your stress levels if you stay out of the office politics. Tip number 7. Now, there's no quicker way to get offside with everybody in the workplace than gossip. Talking about people behind their back, especially bad stuff like this person's not doing their job, this person's having an affair, this person's like stabbing someone else in the back, all that stuff. Again, stay out of it. You don't need that sort of stress. This is not helpful to your job, it's not helpful to your career, and it's not helpful to your level of happiness. Tip number 8, even if you really hate your job, don't say anything negative about it whilst you're there. When you're actually employed by a business, for the entire duration of your employment, you're obligated and you're committed to give them your best. And complaining about the job and say how much your job sucks and actually feeling like that is not fulfilling your side of the commitment. Your employer is paying you on the basis that you are working for them. And even though you hate your job, which is okay, because a lot of times we do things because it may help pay our bills, but it may also be a stepping stone to something bigger and something else that you want to do. If you walk around saying that you hate your job and you start slagging out the company and telling them how bad the company is, it's going to create a whole lot of negative energy. It's going to create a toxic environment. What's worse is if your boss overhears it, who's the one who's going to give you the reference if you move on? If they get an inkling that you hate your job, what are the chances of you being still in this job a month, 3 months from now? I mentioned in the very start of this video that you've got to get used to enjoying life. You cannot just keep wishing it was Friday. Spending every Monday and Tuesday wishing it was Friday, that the weekend would come, is the quickest way of shortening your life, because you know what? Even though you're going to work, it is your life. And sooner or later, you'll get to the point in your life where you wish life would slow down, that you have more time. And we're sitting here wishing our time away. We're sitting here wishing 4 or 5 days of the week away so that you can enjoy 2 days. How crazy is that? Stop wishing it's Friday. Enjoy every day. As they say in cricket, play each ball on its merits. Don't get overly bogged down with all the negative stuff. Just take things as they come and stop wishing it was the next day, it was the next day. Just enjoy it. This is called mindfulness. Enjoy what you've got at the time, because that day will never come back. Tip number 9, especially for people who are not quite enjoying their job and think that this is not their ideal lifestyle, there's nothing wrong with having a side hustle. No matter how hard you work during the day, if you want it bad enough, there are going to be a couple of hours of downtime, whether it's first thing in the morning, late at night, that you can pursue your side hustle. This can be just making a little bit of money on the side, or actually taking your career into an entirely different direction. You have the ability to control your destiny by making use of the time when you're either not at work and you're not asleep. And that's the importance of side hustles. Whether you're creating a YouTube channel, whether you're starting a business, whether you're just studying to learn some more stuff so that you can get a better job, this is your opportunity. Side hustles are the key to career happiness. Tip number 10. I know that we all have other commitments, whether it's family or whether it's whatever, but we've got to find ways of doing stuff that is productive and enjoyable on our days off. We have to make use of our days off in a way that it feels like we're not just working continuously. We can't let the weekends feel like the same as Monday to Friday, because pretty soon we're going to get sick of it. Pretty soon we're going to resent everything. Take some time, even if your life is full of other commitments, even if you have to look after an elderly, unwell relative, even if you have to take care of kids, find some time during your days off to do something that you enjoy, so it doesn't feel like that it's just one continuous work week and there's no break. That is super important. Tip number 11, especially when you're busy, especially when you're feeling down on yourself, especially when you're feeling you have no direction, you have no goals, one of the things that we tend to do as human beings is to neglect ourselves. We feel so stressed that all we do is we spend our days off, our rest time, not resting, not being healthy. Instead of going to the gym, instead of going for a walk, instead of reading, meditating, learning new stuff, we spend our times sleeping, watching TV, eating, drinking, doing stuff that is actually detrimental to our health. How are we going to feel 2 years from now if we don't like our job, but we've put on 30 pounds because we've spent all our weekends doing stuff that is not good for our health? Pretty soon we find that we have high blood pressure, we have diabetes, we've got all these other health problems on top of the fact that we don't like our job. How's that going to feel? So big priority, look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, no one else will. Your boss is not usually going to come up to you and say, I'm worried about your health, I'm worried that you're putting on weight, I'm worried that you're not eating properly. It's up to you. So it's really super important that no matter how stressed you are, look after your health, whether it's just exercise, whether it's eating well, skincare routine, making sure you get enough sleep. It's crucial to staying healthy and staying happy. Tip number 13, work-life balance. Now, work-life balance is different to everybody. Working 40 hours a week is not necessarily everybody's idea of the ideal work-life balance. Some people are happy to work 60 hours a week, but some people only want to work 20. The concept of work-life balance is a very individual concept, and you need to decide for yourself what you are happy and what you are not happy to do. A lot of people would prefer not to work on a Tuesday because they have their kids' basketball practice on a Tuesday. A lot of people want to coach their kids' soccer team and they want to be able to attend training. A lot of people want to spend time at home with the family, but then there are others who are very career driven, who have made the sacrifice of missing their kids' ballet recital, missing their grand final so that they can work. So there is no such thing as a work-life balance, just like there's no such thing as how 8 hours is ideal amount of sleep for any person. It's all very individual. You've got to figure out your own work-life balance, something that you're happy with, something that balances your happiness, your ability to enjoy your free time, with your commitments for work, your motivation for getting higher in the corporate ladder if you are in that way inclined, and also something that helps you maintain your health and your level of happiness and reduce your level of anxiety. So work-life balance, you've got to figure that out for yourself. Tip number 14, your ability to switch off. Now, unless you're on call, there is no reason to be thinking about work when you leave work. I know it's hard when you've had a really stressful day. If you work in healthcare and one of your patients have died, it's really hard to get that out of your mind, but you need to try, because if you don't switch off, that means you never really leave work. That means your brain is constantly thinking about work and you're never getting a rest. And what happens when you don't rest? You run into all those health problems we mentioned earlier: stress, anxiety, high blood pressure, bad health, bad eating, no exercise, heart disease, all this kind of stuff. So unless your employer is paying you, there's no reason why you should be doing work outside of the work hours. It goes on with my theory that if your boss expects you to be working at home, unpaid, outside of work hours, working on weekends, so that you never get to switch off, like if they're expecting that of you because that's something that they would do, they should give you part of the business. They should actually make you part owner of the business, because if they are expecting you to work as hard as they're working, shouldn't you get remunerated exactly the same way as they are? So unless that is happening, if you're working for free, if you're spending your evenings doing research, doing preparation for the next day's work, you need to think carefully whether that's something that you really want to do. And finally, tip number 15, and this is the biggest one of all: don't take things too seriously. In any work situation, whether you're working in a small office where there's only 2 of you, or whether you're working in a big global corporation, whether you're working with hundreds of people, there's always going to be things that upset you. There's always going to be things that you don't like. There's always going to be rules that you think are not appropriate. There's going to be people in your workplace who are bullies, who harass you, who don't do anything, and you feel like you want to get mad at them because you're getting paid the same, or they're getting paid more than you and they're doing less than you. There's going to be times where you think you're the most deserving of a promotion and somebody else gets it and you hate that whole situation. There's going to be times where you feel so frustrated that you want to quit. There's going to be times where you think, oh, I'd rather just take a pay cut and just not do this because I'm sick of it. Before you make any rash decisions, just think, don't take things so seriously. Work is work. Like sometimes, as they say, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. You don't know if you quit this job and you move on to something else, that workplace is going to be even more toxic than this one. So think carefully. Don't take things so seriously. Remember, it's a job. Remember, it's work. You don't own the place. You don't run the joint. When you're a good employee, which I know you are, you're going to feel that there's a responsibility to do your very best, which is absolutely 100% the right thing to do. But there's going to be times when you feel like you've done your very best and everyone else around you aren't doing the very best. And you're going to think that life is taking the piss and you're getting taken advantage of. But you've got to change that. You see, you're not the one getting taken advantage of, because you get to choose what your next step is. You get to choose to rise above all this negativity or this office politics and gossip that I was mentioned about. You get to choose whether you want to stay in this job, or you're going to pursue a side hustle. You're going to do more study and education to get a better job, or to start your own business. So you get to make all these decisions. Don't let the attitude and the way others treat you determine your work happiness, because it's not worth it. The amount of anxiety that you can get from being in a toxic workplace and having a toxic relationship with your colleagues and your boss, it's just not worth it. Stop taking things so seriously. If you think that this job that you're currently in is a stepping stone to something bigger, just enjoy the process. Instead of saying, this sucks, I hate it, I wish I could go right now, just consider it as a learning experience. Use it as a time when you can make new connections, where you can develop some of your skills which you may need for a future position, and just don't take things so seriously. It's taking me 30 years of my work life to finally realize that I don't need to get involved in any of this stuff. I don't need to be grumpy at everything. I don't need to enter discussions and disagreements about stuff that has nothing to do with my job, because you know what? People aren't listening anyway. And you're the one going home stressed, having a headache, feeling exhausted, feeling burnt out, feeling like you don't want to be here. And the worst thing about not wanting to be there is you're spending so many hours of your life at a place you've got to, at least, at a very minimum, not hate being there. Ideally, you will love being there, but hey, it's a job. It's hard to love jobs. But it's at a very minimum, you've got to not hate being in your job. And if you resent everything, if you take everything so seriously that every little tiny insult, because it's not only at work, like you go to the shop, someone just having a bad day, someone who just feels like it, someone who's just vindictive, is going to say something nasty, if you're going to take that to heart, if you're going to get upset every time that happens, your work career is going to be really stressful, and you're going to find it really hard to fit into places, because you're not going to be able to be you, because you're just going to feel like every little thing is going to get to you. And when little thing gets to you, it snowballs into a problem, because you go home and you get grumpy at your family because you've had a shitty day. And then when they ask you why you had a shitty day, the stuff you tell them is really not that bad. And you've just taken everything far too seriously, so stop. Life is meant to be enjoyable. The thing I've learned, despite everything, despite all the complaining, the moaning that I've done, and all the stress and anxiety that I've accumulated, which I blame myself for. Initially, I used to blame everyone else. If my job sucked and I hated being there, it's because it's somebody else's fault. But the moment you think it's your fault, it's the way you interpret a situation, everything changes. And this is what I want to do with this video. I hope that these 15 tips have been useful to you. Leave a comment below if you have any other tips, or if you just want to share your story, because I'd love to hear it. And it's now 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening. I'm ready to go watch some TV, spend some time with my family, and actually not dread going to work in the morning. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time in another video. I'm going inside before it gets any darker. See ya.